I never split any hairs about, do I want to make a sequel to Jurassic Park? Of course I wanted to make a sequel to Jurassic Park. It was just when. I somehow liked that idea, and we never really exploited it, but that can of shaving cream that had the DNA of about 8 species of dinosaur. When I was making the first movie, I thought if there's going to be a sequel, it's going to have to be about the retrieval of that can of shaving lotion. And that's how they bring the dinosaurs back. I mean, that's why I did the shot in the movie. But it wound up that Michael Crichton's second book went into an entirely different philosophy about how to reintroduce the dinosaurs. And so I went along with Michael's instincts, and that can is still buried there somewhere, just waiting to rear about 8 ugly heads for another Jurassic Park movie.
Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. Now for today's video, I want to talk about Jurassic Park 2. And what I mean by that is the idea for the original Jurassic Park 2 before it would ultimately become The Lost World. Now, I've talked about this before on the channel in passing, but I've never really gone over everything that we really know about this movie. In fact, there isn't really any sort of collected information on the project that exists on the internet at all, really. This is more than likely because the ideas for JP2 were quickly abandoned once Michael Crichton released his second Jurassic novel in 1995. But yes, essentially, when the first movie was made, the idea for its sequel was for something to be created revolving around that can of dinosaur embryos that Nedry had stolen. Of course, this never really came to be. But we did get a semi-canon video game in 2011 that incorporated the Barbasol can into its plot. But there were a lot of continuity errors with that story even before Jurassic World came out. So it's kind of hard to make a case for that being exactly what happened to the embryos after the first movie. Nevertheless, Spielberg has gone on record to state that he literally did that shot of mud falling on the shaving cream can so that Jurassic Park 2 would be set up in the future, providing Jurassic Park 1 was a hit, that is. Now, if any of you own a book by Jody Duncan called The Making of the Lost World, you'll also know that Spielberg had a lot of other plans for the second movie that never made it into that final film. Way back to the beginning of production on the second movie, the director had this image of a little boy staring out of his bedroom window and seeing a T-Rex walk through a suburban neighborhood. This idea was kind of what a lot of people expected out of Jurassic Park 2 back then, because the first novel, the comic books, and even the toys were playing with the idea of dinosaurs in the mainland at the time. And we're talking about the earliest points in Jurassic Park history. For the book around 1990, and for the movie 93 all the way to 95. So it's pretty understandable that Spielberg would want to take dinosaurs off of the island in JP2 around this time. But look, what I really find interesting is all of this stuff surrounding JP2 before the Lost World novel was even a thing. From what we've been told, Steven Spielberg's idea for the second movie originally revolved around getting that can of shaving cream and probably getting dinosaurs off of the island. Now, I'm going to assume that since the embryos were only good for 36 hours, that the story would probably have picked up like immediately after Nedry died, or at least very near to his time of death. But then again, Spielberg tried to repurpose this Barbasol can idea for Jurassic Park 4 in the mid-2000s, and they didn't really care that it had been 10 years later, so maybe they would have just tried to write around that. I'll do a future video that finally documents everything in that script from beginning to end, but for now, I just want to focus on the original ideas for JP2. So, the stolen embryos in that can was the big idea that he was playing around with. Just this alone paints a very different picture for the film. Certainly different from The Lost World. It should also be noted that, at this point in history, Isla Sorna had not yet been created, so the original island would more than likely have made its return. That's where the Barbasol can is after all, and that's the only place we know of that had dinosaurs at the time. Another small piece of information surrounding Jurassic Park 2 is the interest that Joe Johnston had in directing the movie. Once he saw the original Jurassic Park, he immediately asked Steven Spielberg if he could make the second one. Ultimately, it's common knowledge now that Spielberg said no, and that Johnston instead got to direct Jurassic Park 3. But regardless of that fact, I do really wonder what kind of ideas he had in store for that second film if he would have done it. During the release of that third movie, Johnston was actually asked about this very subject in a 2001 interview. His question was pretty straightforward. How would you have done The Lost World differently if you had directed it? And this is what the filmmaker had to say. Well, I offered to do Lost World. Actually, no. I offered to do the sequel to Jurassic Park before it was called Lost World. Even before the book was even written, because I liked the first one. I actually liked the second one. I think that if that second film had been done by anyone other than Steven Spielberg, it would have been much more well received. I think Steven has a pressure on him that no one else in this business has. There is so much expected of him and so much that he has to live up to. All self-inflicted, of course. I was never attached to the project anyway. I don't know. Impossible question to answer. Right around now, you probably see what I meant at the beginning when I said that there isn't much stuff that's been documented about this project on the internet. But make no mistake, that Barbasol can was set up in the original film and was supposed to get followed up on in a sequel. Spielberg himself tried very hard to revive this idea for the fourth film many years later until the script got leaked online in 2004. One more thing I want to bring up about the story for the scrapped Jurassic Park 2 is that I've heard things here and there that state that Spielberg actually wanted to bring hybrid dinosaurs into the film series in this original sequel, but now with that being said, I've never once seen any sort of evidence to support that this was an idea that would have been used for that movie. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but I don't want you guys to get the wrong idea just in case that info isn't true. Hybrid dinosaurs was definitely an idea he was holding on to for many years, but as far as the second film is concerned, I don't know if that was ever something that they took into consideration. The Super Raptor was for the actual Lost World Jurassic Park, but that genetic creation was from the Lost World, and not the Jurassic Park 2 that we're talking about right now. In closing, I want to say that I personally would really like to see some sort of acknowledgement about that shaving cream can in a movie sometime down the line. Whether it be just a live-action flashback of what we saw go down in the 2011 Telltale game, or maybe even a completely new set of events that would be original for an audience. I just really would like to have the closure of that storyline in film up on the big screen. It's kind of a long shot to even hope for us getting something like that this far out though, because Spielberg really tried to bring it back for Jurassic Park 4, but it never really worked out the way he wanted it to. So that can of Barbasol has remained buried in the mud for over 25 years now, probably all burnt up and destroyed from the Mount Sibo eruption that we saw in Fallen Kingdom. Will we ever get it in the movies? I doubt it, but you never know what they might have in store. Now, I'm curious to hear what all of you guys think about these ideas. Would you have liked for this version of JP2 to have been made back in the 90s? And if so, why? Also, what would your ideas be on a Joe Johnston-directed Jurassic Park 2, or possibly even a revival of this idea for a future story? It's definitely something interesting to talk about, but hey, whatever your own thoughts and opinions happen to be, I'd love to hear them in the comments down below. Now before I go, I'd like to thank all of my game wardens, as well as all of my InGen executives. I'd also like to thank all of my park workers and InGen hunters as well. It really means the world to me that all of you guys enjoy what I do so much, and I'm extremely thankful to have all of your incredible support. Now I'd like to thank all of you for watching today's video and hope you all enjoyed the content. If you feel like I deserve it, I'd appreciate the like and hope that you'll consider subscribing if you're interested in hearing from me again. See you all in the next one, guys, and as always, take it easy.